Hey, this is Lance Wallnau. Today is going to be a most interesting show because we're going to be taking behind the scenes with a mother I recently met whose 12-year-old daughter was virtually driven to suicide by the induction she was getting in a activist who was invited to the school in an art class to cause her to question her own gender and her own identity. And it's a shocking story. You're going to love it, though, because bold mama bears are rising up, and there's a movement taking place in America that I think we're on the cusp of right now. And part of the challenge that we have is schools, especially government schools, are actually an ideological propaganda factory that messes with your kids. How are they going to learn the real history of the country? How will they ever actually learn what real economic responsibility is, or what personal responsibility is, or what individual rights are? And that kind of powerful education is now being given back to parents in a series which is called what's it called here, Mercedes? It's called The Tuttle Twins. And so we're seeing it even in our own staff. We're using this with our own kids. And what I want you to know is you have the ability to properly educate, and you have the responsibility to properly indoctrinate and vaccinate your kids' brains from the propaganda they're getting exposed to out there in social media, from their peer group, in entertainment, and in the school system. I want you to get your own copy of these powerful books. You could actually start with a 7-year-old. It's designed to break down complex ideas about government, about economics, so a 7-year-old can grasp it. I think the adults will probably learn something. You want to go to lancewallnau.com/twins. lancewallnau.com/twins. Hey, grandmas and grandpas, grab this now. You can start even indoctrinating the grandkids when they're visiting with you. Let's get into this show. Welcome back to the Lance Wallnau Show. You know, what we're dealing with in this ideological takeover of the United States has another feature to it. What I'm saying in my other segments is I believe that the attack on Trump is going to weaken the already weak Republicans, but it's going to gather strength with independents, and largely because there are other issues that are causing a tremendous dissatisfaction with the nature of the elites and their control of schools and their imposition in families. And we're seeing it more dangerously developed all the time as young people are explaining the tragic story they're going through with gender transitioning and the regrets they have. One of the greatest interviews, I'll have to get this for you in a future segment, is a Jordan Peterson segment, where Peterson says, hey, he said, you know, I could tell you the psychological development issue that's going on here. The average young person who is having an experience of not being comfortable in their own body, by the age of 18, 90% of it gets sorted out. The tragedy is the kids are being targeted earlier than 18 to create problems. My next guest is an authority on this. Erin Lee is the mother of 3 children in northern Colorado. I met her recently. She's a proud Army wife and a full-time human resource manager, writer, speaker. And she's founded an organization which is designed to deal with the gender attack. She and her husband became vocal advocates for parental rights after their little girl was recruited by her trusted art teacher into a secret gender and sexuality meeting disguised as an art club, where their daughter was convinced that her normal 12-year-old discomfort means she's transgender. In the club, the teacher and outside activists discussed attraction, puberty blockers, and suicide. They positioned themselves as safe adults and gave the kids toys and provided a cell phone to reach out privately, and even warning them about talking to their parents because it might not be safe for them to do it. When you've got agents that are evangelists targeting your kids in the school system to get into their heads and separate them from their parents, folks, you've got a moment in time when the story of what we're talking about politically over here with the left-right completely breaks down into what's going on in the real world with parents and their children. And I want to introduce you now to Erin Lee. Erin, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
And go ahead and tell us your story, because I just read it for people, but I mean, it's shocking. I mean, it's kind of hard to believe that this is going on and it's happening in multiple places where parents are completely oblivious to it. So tell us the journey that you've been on.
Yeah, well, 2021, we had just moved to a new town. My daughter is a shy, introverted kid, and she had started at a new school, hadn't made a single connection with a student her age, thanks to the draconian lockdown standards of our school district. And one day, this art teacher, who was also her homeroom teacher, asked her to stay after school for art club. So we gave our permission for art club when she texted us last minute. When she got there, it was actually Gender and Sexuality Awareness Club, or GSA, and the teacher had invited in this outside activist, and they did such things as using flags to describe umbrella terms or defining words, telling the kids that queer is a term they can use while they're still figuring out their sexuality, and transgender is when you're not completely comfortable in your biological sex. They explicitly asked who the kids were attracted to, discussed polyamory, suicide, telling the kids that these new labels, including my daughter's new transgender label, makes them more likely to kill themselves. They handed out toys, flags, stickers, bracelets, what she called the obligatory stickers and wristbands that kids love to collect everywhere they go. It was a very predacious response. She handed out a personal cell phone number. She asked the kids to connect with her privately on Discord and WhatsApp, where there are quick hide features and where parents are not monitoring the conversation. And as our daughter left the room that day, the art teacher even pulled her aside and said, "Remember, you don't have to tell your parents." And so we're very fortunate that she came home and we could tell something was wrong. And she immediately handed us that transgender flag, proclaimed her transgenderism, and wanted to involve us in that process. So we're lucky she broke the rules. The number one rule of this club was what you hear in here, keep in here. So we're fortunate she broke that.
So she breaks this, and now your husband then is hearing this. Oh boy, this episode was so hot, YouTube and Facebook might not be able to handle it. So go to lancewallnau.com/podcast or Rumble to hear the whole thing.
Did you enjoy this latest episode? Please remember to share it with your friends, because the more knowledge you have, the better equipped you are to navigate the world.